This is WBA Super Middleweight Champion Andre Ward, and you're with Leave It in the Ring Radio.
Damas y caballeros, it's Leave It in the Ring.
And welcome back to another edition of Leave It in the Ring Radio. I'm your host, Dave Duenas, with my co-host, Mr. Felipe Leon. What's going on, brother? Well, I'm glad that you're on early. I didn't think you were going to be on this early. So I had some stuff prepared to keep me going just in case you were like 10, 15 minutes late, you know?
Wow. I'm surprised you actually had something prepared.
I know, right? I figured, I had some time to kill. And, I put out there on our Twitter that a couple of polls, because we could do that. You could do that on your Twitter thing. I don't know if you know that, because I know you don't really, you're not that active on your Twitter account. And so I put some things out there because I was kind of curious. And we got the rundown. We got the good, the bad, and the ugly that we're gonna definitely do, because we didn't have a chance last week because Blog Talk, like always, is playing against us. So, but this time around, hopefully everything goes smooth. Like traffic today, because you didn't have any traffic as much, right? Or did you leave early? Is that what happened?
No, I left on time, but there wasn't that much traffic. Everything's good. We're here. We're now. Let's talk boxing. Let's see what you got prepared, and let's talk about what's going on.
You want me to do the poll really quick first before we get into the rundown?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do that. Okay, so check it out. So I put out there who. Our listeners and the fight fans out there, who would they want to see Jorge Linares fight next? And Mikey Garcia got 73% of the votes. And then came second was Robert Easter. And then came last is Lomachenko, Vasily Lomachenko. So I think the people are pretty dead on, in their decision of who they want to see Jorge Linares go after next, which is Mikey Garcia, which I think is a great fight. I mean, Lomachenko, who's fighting this Saturday, we're gonna definitely give our preview. He's gonna fight Jason Sosa. Hopefully he gets past Jason Sosa, because I actually put a poll out there, and so far, man, I mean, I think it's like 7% people vote that Jason has a chance, and the rest were like 80-something% or something. I don't even know. I have to go back and look at that. But, that whole division, Felipe, from Robert Easter to Richard Comey, I mean, that's pretty deep. I mean, regardless if Jorge Linares beats Mikey Garcia, Mikey Garcia beats him, or whatever happens with Lomachenko this Saturday with Sosa, I think if you throw these guys in a small barrel and shake it up, and whoever comes out, you're going to have some excellent fights between all these dudes, win or lose. I think we got some really good, steady action at the 135 division.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing that, well, not so much. What I was going to say is that they're really, the names there are not huge names, but we do have pretty good names. Jorge Linares is a name, at least to the hardcore fans, maybe not to the mainstream. He hasn't really fought on HBO or Showtime recently. I mean, it's been years since he fought on one of the major networks. Mikey Garcia, obviously coming back from that big 2.5-year layoff, is a name, but I think he needs to get back on the spotlight a little bit more. And the only one out of those three, Terry Flanagan, obviously a big name out in the UK, but here in the United States, not really getting a lot of play. So the real name that has been in front of the crowd, in front of the boxing audience, has been Vasily Lomachenko.
Right. Well, he's the pound-for-pound guy that everybody's, has already labeled, you know what I mean? So I think that's why. And then also because he's got the backings of HBO. Let's be honest here. And most media outlets report everything that he does. Most media outlets retweet whatever he says. Most media outlets are completely excited. The label of pound for pound, and already naming him the greatest, guy to lace up gloves, whatever they're claiming. I mean, it's a little ahead of themselves, but I think the expectations is obviously it's there. And you know, to sit back and watch him, it's hard to argue that he's not moving uphill towards those expectations, right? So I still say don't throwing around the names that are in the division. You're right, they're not recognizable, but they're more recognizable when it comes to fight night. If all promoters and everybody can get in sync and an agreement of making these guys all fight each other, I think we're going to have a pretty good era of plenty of fights in that division that's going to be satisfying to the appetite to a fight fan.
But that's a big if, and that's the thing that worries me as far. That's the thing that worries me as far as this division, because we have Jorge Linares, who is with Golden Boy and taking promotions, but Golden Boy has been pretty open lately in working with other promoters. But we have Mikey Garcia, who right now doesn't have a promoter and is looking to work on a fight-by-fight basis, which I don't see anybody, jumping and putting their hands up to be that promoter that's going to invest their time and money into a Mikey Garcia without having the guarantee that he's going to stay with them on the long term, so that promoter could reap the benefits of making Mikey Garcia a bigger star.
Right. Here's the thing, Felipe. And tell me if I'm wrong about this.
You are. Probably are, but go ahead.
Be quiet. Fight fans, especially in social media, seem to concentrate more on being negative rather than concentrating on what fights could and should be made or what fights we want to see. I mean, if anytime you want to play fantasy fights, I don't like to play fantasy fights of the past versus the present. What I like is fantasy fights that could happen and should happen, which is, like I said, we already saw Robert Easter and Richard Comey go at it. It was a phenomenal, fantastic fight. Now it's the turn of seeing what happens between Lomachenko and Sosa. That's a phenomenal fight. It's a good fight there. So, Jason Sosa is no pushover. But the winner or the loser takes somebody like Easter. Garcia could step up and say, I take the winner of the Lomachenko and Sosa. Jorge Linares still can pound for the Garcia. If not, he can go after like a Robert Easter or a Richard Comey. I mean, those are fights there that fight fans should be asking for and talking about. Where more as we've seen fight fans go, I don't want to see that because the guy's going to get knocked out in 2 rounds. That fight sucks. That guy hasn't done anything. I think if people just took a step back and just go, hey, let the fighters do what they do best, which is get in the ring and fight, and help make these fights by voicing your, the fights that should be made, rather than just being the guy that, is going to knock down the other guy because you always want to see your fighter come up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you with that. Boxing fans, in the most part, especially with the advent of social media and especially Twitter, they like to, we always see it. The guy wins and like, well, the guy he fought wasn't that good, or what did the guy do before he fought him and things like that. And I agree with you. Let's just see the fight. Let the cards fall where they may, and then fights make fights. That's an old saying in boxing. Fights make fights. So let's see Lomachenko fight Sosa. Let's see how he looks, and then go from there and see what happens. We already saw Linares. He looked great. Mikey Garcia looked great in his last fight. Let's see Lomachenko, and let's see what they can put together. Let's stop trying to put our promoter hat on and let the actual real promoters put the hat on and make the fight.
Absolutely. Here on another poll that I had tweeted out there was Danny Garcia versus Jesse Vargas. It's a great way of seeing PBC and Top Rank moving forward and working with each other. And surprisingly, 76% of voters said yes, they'd like to see that. Only 24% said no, which is still a high number for 24%. Again, I'd like to see this fight. Why? Because both guys, I don't know. Would you say there's similarities there in style? I just think that they would complement each other, and it would be a great matchup between two guys that got solid jaws and both are, can hit pretty hard. I think Jesse Vargas, in my opinion, is the much heavier puncher at the welterweight division.
Then Danny Garcia?
Then Danny Garcia. I just think because he's more established. Vargas has kind of shown that, you know, he can rock a guy at the division where we haven't really seen Danny do that except for when it goes against like C-level guys, you know. Not taking nothing away from Danny. I mean, he thinks if he lands it, obviously, you know, Keith Thurman could awfully attest to that, you know, that Danny Garcia has some punching power, or else you want to have reverted to a plan B, you know, when during their fight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Jesse Vargas, as a puncher, as a big puncher. I mean, the guy has some pop. Obviously, you could ask Timothy Bradley about that, but he's generally not known as a puncher. And although Danny Garcia, as you mentioned, is moving up to the welterweight division, he's a welterweight now. I mean, there's no way in hell that he could ever make 140 pounds. And at that weight class, he's proven that he can punch. So if I had to put my money on either one of them, I would say Danny Garcia is the bigger puncher. But I agree with the 70-something%. I do want to see that fight. I think it's a good action fight. Jesse Vargas, whether he wins or loses, he's a good fight. I think Danny Garcia was in somewhat of an entertaining fight. I think that us as boxing fans, we expected a lot from that Danny Garcia-Keith Thurman fight, and it didn't deliver. Obviously, it didn't deliver. But I don't think it should take away from wanting to see either one of those guys in the ring again.
Well, it delivered for 6 rounds. After 6 rounds, I don't know what they delivered to us, but we got what they served, and we had to eat it, right?
Yeah, pretty much. You probably ate more of it.
Yeah, whatever. Anyways, let's go down to that rundown, and let's go down that list. And I also have another poll for the Ward and Cola, but while we do the rundown, then I'll add that.
Okay. So just this week, it was officially announced that WBO, IBF, WBA light heavyweight champion Andre Ward will rematch against Sergiy Kovalev on June 17th in Las Vegas, Nevada. The event will be broadcast live on HBO pay-per-view and presented by Ward's promoter, Rock Nation. It is also said that Rock Nation would look to win the purse bid to present the mandated defense of Guillermo Rigondeaux versus Moises Chucky Flores of Rigondeaux's WBA 122-pound title. So that more than likely will be the semi-main event on June 17th. David, your thoughts on this rematch? Should it be on pay-per-view? And, you know, is it a long time coming? Is it right on time? What do you think?
I think it's right on time. The momentum was obviously leaving. So how much of the momentum has went? How much is still there? That's really entirely up to Rock Nation to now behave like a promoter, right? I mean, this is something big to serve, and especially on pay-per-view, and their numbers weren't the greatest. And the track record that Rock Nation has brought to the table as a boxing promoter,
horrible.
It's horrible. It's horrible. Very terrible. So,
I mean, they have one of the biggest stars in boxing. I mean, whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't erase the fact that Miguel Cotto for the last 10 years has been one of the biggest boxing stars out there, and they can't get him a fight. They can't put anything together for the guy. So what does that say about?
Because look, they bought into a brand that they thought they didn't have to put any money into. They thought the brand was going to move itself. They thought the brand was going to sell itself. And now they're finding out that in boxing, that's not how it really works. That you still got to do some of the footwork. You still got to be hands-on with the promotion and the fighter, and that's in terms in having a well-groomed team, which would be a promoter. The promoter's at the top of the head, and then you got your publicist, then you got your matchmaker, and it goes down the line, right? Well, Rock Nation has never dealt with something like that, you know, and it is puzzling. You sit back and you go like, okay, so what can Miguel Cotto do? Now, obviously, saying that you know, they're looking for an opponent for June, right? I think that's the date that they threw out there, they stamped on. And obviously, Juan Marquez is not going to step up because his trainer, his mentor, is going to be busy with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. So I don't think he's going to want to try to retrain himself. He's been out of the ring for what, 2-3 years now, Felipe?
May 2014 was his last fight. So in about a month, it's going to be 3 years.
So 3 years, he's not going to be there. He's not going to step in the out. I mean, he's not. I just don't see him being a fool and trying to get back in the ring without his trainer. I just don't see that happening. So, I mean, where does Miguel Cotto do, and where does Rock Nation look for? You know, they tried with James Kirtland. We saw what happened there. What do they? I mean, I guess the only option is to try to make another fight, a rematch fight with Austin Trout, but that goes back to Miguel Cotto want to revisit something like that he terribly lost. He was terribly behind and was outpointed and outboxed because he was the smaller guy.
Well, why don't we do this, David? We're going a little bit off topic. I do want to talk about the Miguel Cotto fight, but let's talk about Andre Ward against Sergiy Kovalev first, and then we'll move on to Miguel Cotto next. So,
well, you brought it up. That's
yeah,
why
I'm sorry. I forgot.
All right.
I forgot your attention span is so
it's
small.
Very short. It's very small.
If you see a shining light on the wall, we lose you for the rest of the show.
I'm not Hillary Clinton. Come on, let's not got that far and stuff. Well, I'm gonna tell you this. Immediately with the Andre Ward and Kovalev fight being announced, I put out there again on Twitter World, who wins this time? Is it Ward or is it Sergiy? And right away, 41% came for Ward. Kovalev had 59%. So some people believe that he's going to come out there for the kill. I mean, did you see his tweet when he had said that, he called him a mother effer and he's going to end his career? So the animosity is now, if you didn't believe it was real the first time, you got to believe that it's real the second time around. Because Ward made him suffer. He made him suffer in believing it wasn't going to happen.
Do you think Sergiy Kovalev really controls his...
No, he didn't tweet that. I don't think he did. I don't believe he did. So, but I mean,
you broke up a little bit. Do you think he controls his Twitter account?
I don't think he controls his Twitter handler. But let me tell you this. It's obviously got to be in the back of his mind. I mean, he's had to mention it to his the Twitter guy that's using the fingers to push the buttons there and tweet it out, right? So I think there's a little bit, maybe not in those words, but I think in a lot of way that's the way he feels, that he wants to end, Andre Ward. And I think his team, man, are irritated. Ward has done his job, which is get underneath the skin of the crusher. So I think there's some truth behind him wanting to put some real harm to Andre Ward.
Yeah, I think that Sergiy Kovalev, I mean, Sergiy Kovalev has, an interesting personality. He really, I feel that he takes the business of boxing quite personally. I mean, Andre Ward is not the first guy that he has really gone after at a personal level by calling him, the word that he did on Twitter. The other guy that he's done it as well is with Adonis Stevenson, when they were going through the whole thing with Adonis Stevenson and trying to see if they can make that fight. He really took it personally. So it's not the first time we see Kovalev take the boxing business personally, because this is the boxing business. Obviously, Andre Ward wanted to get the most that he could from this rematch. Maybe he did, or he felt that he got the best that he could because he did sign on for it. But like you mentioned, he made Sergiy Kovalev think that it may or may not happen, and that's one thing that Kovalev didn't like. So there's one thing.
Like it or not, the winner has the upper hand. And like it or not, the winner is ahead of the game in terms of playing head games or anything else. And let's be honest here. We're the only ones that were not in on the plan with Andre Ward after his win with their first controversial fight, okay? I'm pretty sure because it was already in contract that there was a clause for a rematch, right? That Ward and his team sat back and say, okay, we got to give this guy a rematch, or else there's a strong possibility, there's going to be some legal issues and what not. So I think, and I don't know what you think, Felipe, but if I'm on the winner's corner, and it was such a tough fight that we got to have an edge over this guy. And people don't like advantages, but this is an advantage. When you make the other guy stress and you make the other guy now take it personal, which means there's a possibility that Kovalev decides to, throw everything out the door and not try to box. Now takes it personal, goes in there and fights basically on anger. That now Ward can pick at him, pick away. Make it a much easier fight. A lot of folks are thinking that Andre Ward's going to go out there and pick up where he left off at round 12 and dominate this fight to a unanimous decision this time with no controversial judging. I don't know about that, because I've heard some folks too, Felipe, say, well, what more can Kovalev do and change in a second fight? And I've said that there was no body shots from Kovalev. The Crusher kind of just veered away from that and became a headhunter. He fell in love with his power after dropping Andre Ward, which was the second or the third round. I think it was the second round. Drops him in the second round, and it's just basically try to headhunt and didn't do anything else. He did use his jab, but I mean, he left it there in the hands of the judges. So in a lot of ways, I know fight fans are pissed off with these 3 American judges that judged for Andre Ward, but in a lot of ways, you still got to put some blame to Kovalev because he left it on the table. He didn't mix it up. He didn't change his game plan. Go ahead.
I think the biggest mistake that Kovalev can do, and you kind of already touched on the subject, is that in the second fight, and I see kind of happening with his remarks on Twitter, is to immediately from the onset go for the knockout. That's what we saw him do in the first fight after he dropped him. Like he said, he fell in love with his power. And he went after the knockout in the second half of the fight. And I think that if he follows that game plan, I think that's what Andre Ward and Virgil Hunter are expecting. So they're going to have the strategy to try to neutralize that,
Right.
John David Jackson is a good trainer, but Virgil Hunter and Andre Ward have something special between them. I mean, the guy hasn't lost in, since he's 12 years old. How old is he now? Like early 30s?
Yeah, in his early 30s, yeah.
Yeah, so he hasn't lost in 18, 19, 20 years. So there's something special there. And the strategy that Virgil Hunter and Andre Ward can put together, I think it's much stronger than what John David Jackson and Kovalev can, as far as in between the ears, the mental part of it. If you remember when Andre Ward went down, Virgil Hunter didn't even react. He made it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal, And I think that helped Andre Ward keep his calm and be able to make the adjustments that he made in the eyes of the judges.
But let's be fair. Virgil Hunter I think the reason why Virgil Hunter was calm, he's seen the lights been taken out of Amir Khan. He's seen, Alfredo Angulo, get beaten to a pulp. So
but you can't compare those fighters to what Andre Ward means to him. And
no.
I mean, Andre Ward is his calling card. That's the guy that he made from scratch. He got Amir Khan already made. Alfredo Angulo was already made. Andre Berto was already made. This is the guy that is Virgil Hunter's calling card. This is the guy that he took into his own home and built him from the ground up. So it means something different when you're Andre Ward and you go down to the canvas when Virgil Hunter's in that corner. So I think that that would be the mistake that Kovalev would make, is that to go after the knockout. And I understand him because obviously, because of what happened in the last fight, he doesn't want to leave the decision to the judges. He wants to take the decision into his own hands. But I think that if he goes after the knockout and that's his whole strategy, he's just playing into Andre Ward's and Virgil Hunter's hands.
Well, I think if you are going to go for the knockout, and I think that with John David Jackson, I agree with you. The chemistry between Virgil Hunter and Andre Ward is unbreakable. It's something unique. You don't really see it with trainers that often, like Juan Marquez and Nacho Bernstein. That is a unique chemistry. They understand each other. They can finish each other's sentences, right? But with John David Jackson, what I like about him is that I think he can correct the mistake that he saw what happened on that first fight. It's just having your fighter follow through with that. And that's exactly what I agree with you, is how much Andre Ward get underneath the skin or in the head of Kovalev. So we're going to find out, To me, it would be a dumb move.
Here's my thing. I think that between a fighter and a trainer, a lot of it has to do with trust. You have to trust, because that trainer is you're another set of eyes. They're seeing things that you may not be seeing, and they're giving you that advice in the corner. And I think that between Andre Ward and Virgil Hunter, there's complete trust there. Does Sergiy Kovalev trust John David Jackson?
If he didn't, I don't think John David Jackson would be in his corner for the rematch. A lot of times when you lose that trust, we've seen fighters, dump and move on because they think that the trainer didn't give them the right advice. I think that John David Jackson and Kovalev fell in love with that power. They thought they were the bigger guy. They saw that Ward was getting hurt. They saw that their jab was working, but they did a half-assed job in terms of trying to paint the whole picture. And what I mean by that is go to the body, slow them down, and forget about the head sometimes. Sometimes you got to work one pace and then a different pace. That's all about having two different game plans here. With Ward, you got to give it to him. He got dropped, and he figured, I cannot set myself up too long with this guy. I got to make sure I smother his punches. I got to make sure to hold at the right moments, and I got to make sure I jab at the right time. Jab after he jabs. Pull him in, and then I counter with my jab. There's a lot of things in that first fight that you could sit back and you could argue about, and you could say one guy did one better thing than the other. But the rematch, to me, is going to tell you how well these guys went back to the drawing board for one guy to, Ward, to say that he can pick up where he left off and paint an even better picture what he did for the judges the last time around, where Kovalev is trying to paint out a knockout, reel. Well, he's got to go back to that drawing board, and he's got to look at what he left out. What were the things that he left out to potentially get the stoppage over Andre Ward? This is an interesting fight again. I think these guys fight 5 times. One guy's going to win 3 out of 5 every single time.
How excited are you seeing the return of Guillermo Rigondeaux on that card if they're able to make that possible?
You know what? I've always been a Rigondeaux fan, but I'm not going to sit here and say that he's not boring at some times. The guy can have a boring performance. Sometimes he's just too dominant, way too dominant. It's just like the same thing with Lomachenko. Look, some people think I'm a Lomachenko hater, and I'm really not. I'm just saying I just can't stand it when a guy is just way too dominant. If you're too dominant, you're way better than this guy. If you're 10 levels above the guy and you're just toying with him, that's not what I want. I just want you to take him out of there, then. Just, just get him out of the way and stuff. And Rigondeaux sometimes can play with his food way too long where it just becomes a bore fest. It's that plain and simple. I understand where fight fans are going with. I'm not going to take away that Rigondeaux and Lomachenko and, other guys that are boxing purists, that they're beautiful to watch. They're, phenomenal to sit back. Linares. I think the only thing that makes Linares exciting, man, is that the dude could be dominant, but at any given moment, it could be stopped in just a blink of an eye by one punch.
I'm pretty much done with Rigondeaux, honestly. I'm not going to call myself a fan, but I'm not a guy that avoids them. I think he has been entertaining the past.
Well, you're not the only one that avoids them, though. People could look. There's going to be some folks that go, well, the people that are avoiding him are other fighters. But let's be honest here, Felipe. The people that avoid Rigondeaux, in truth, are his own management and his own promoters.
Well, there's been talk that he's always asked for a bunch of money and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And that doesn't help. There's only so much money to go, and when you think you're worth more than they're willing to give you, that's how much you're worth. That's your manager there too. That's your manager there too. At the same time, putting stuff in your head that's really not. It's crazy to think that you're at a level where you should get paid all this money because you're so-called superstar status. I'm sorry, you got to work for that status. You got to work that way. The last good one, the last best win he had was against Nonito Donaire.